It all started many years ago, and just before 2006, when we looked at the internet and thought, this is quite a strange thing because all of the computers in the world are connected to every other computer. But for me to speak to you, I have to get permission from Google or whatever, and the information goes from me to them to you, and maybe they let me in, maybe they don't let me in, maybe they monitor my information, maybe they don't. And we thought, this is very strange, and that took a couple of years to think about it, and it was quite interesting because I'm a kind of Richard Feynman fan, and one of his statements is, if you're doing something that you can't find in nature, it's wrong. And then realised that in 13.5 billion years, nature had never created a server-based infrastructure like we have on the internet today. And then I looked at the computers and said, well, if you actually take all the computers and just connect them together, it's much more powerful than any of these large organisations could ever dream of. There's more storage, there's more CPU capability. And then looked back at what we have and thought, well, why should I have to ask anyone to be able to communicate with anyone else? Why can't I just do it because it belongs to us all? And then realised that if all of the computers connect together and we're supplying all that computing resource, then the people should have full rights to use that. And the deal of joining the internet shouldn't be between you and a third-party company. It should be between you and the internet. So we kind of figured, well, what we have to do is get all the computers to join together in some kind of global cyber brain, a bit like the blockchain does for trade. Is really get all the computers to join together in a manner that they could provide all of the world's resources to every individual person. And that's really where the MaidSafe story started. And then it took a couple of years to pull it all together. I had to disappear off for 8 months to a place that didn't speak English so I could try and calculate some of this stuff. Uh-huh. And I knew it was going to be calculable. I mean, people would say you're insane, computers go off and on all the time. There's hackers there and there's people spying on you and all the rest of it. You'll never be able to do it. And that to me was a challenge that I loved. So I went away and did this. And it was quite interesting because there's a few really hard things that you've got to solve. Three main things. One is, how do you make data so secure that nobody can read it except you? And how would you store that data on multiple computers which switch off and on the whole time? And the second part was really, what does this cyber brain do? What does it look like? How can all the computers recognise each other to be able to tell, is a good computer good or bad? Is it doing a good job or a bad job? So that autonomous network was a very difficult part of it. So we did that. And then the last problem, which was probably the toughest one, was, okay, we've got highly encrypted data on a network that's autonomous and looks after itself. How do you log into it? You're a person looking at this network, so there's no servers, there's no location for you to send a message to say, let me in. And that's where we took up with a self-authentication mechanism, which is really good because you store a piece of information at a known location only to you on the network that you can download from any computer if you ask for that location. And that turns the computer you're working on into your computer.
So the location where the data is stored becomes analogous to sort of like a private key that you have to have in order to access your data, and it's only known to you?
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And how you create that almost private key is you put in a couple of passwords that only you know, and the client software will manipulate the information you give it and download from that key space some information, and then